High blood sugar doesn't stay high because people eat too many carbs. It stays high because the system that processes carbs has broken down at the cellular level. And once you understand that, the most powerful tools available are almost none of the ones you've been told about. I spent 10 years in the emergency department. I watched people arrive with blood sugar crises that had been quietly building for years while they were doing everything they've been told to do, cutting carbs, watching their weight, taking their pills. The carb cutting wasn't wrong, it was just incomplete. It treated the symptom, not the underlying mechanism. I have patients who got their fasting numbers down from the diabetic range to normal without cutting a single food group. Not temporarily, they've maintained it for months, some for years. What changed was what they added, not what they took away. So here's what I'm going to give you 10 specific foods, the exact mechanism behind each one, the right way to use it, and a framework for where to start. And I'm going to show you something. Most videos on this topic completely miss a zero cost, zero effort technique at mealtime that can cut your post meal blood sugar spike by up to 30%. Not by changing what you eat, by changing the order you eat it in. I'll cover that in the middle section. Let's get into the first one. Before I do, I want to make one thing clear about how this works mechanically. Almost every case of high blood sugar I've seen in the ER starts with the same upstream problem. A hormone called insulin, which normally acts like a key that opens your cells to let glucose in, has stopped working properly. The cells have become resistant to it. Insulin knocks, the door stays shut. Your pancreas produces more and more insulin trying to compensate. Your blood sugar climbs anyway, and the standard response is a prescription that pushes even more insulin into a system that already has too much. What none of these 10 foods do is add more insulin to that pile. What they do is fix the lock. Each one targets a specific part of the resistance mechanism, and I've grouped them by how they work, so you can build this intelligently. Group one, foods that slow glucose entry so your pancreas never has to panic. Group two, foods that reduce the inflammation, blocking the insulin signal. Group three, foods that directly activate insulin receptors. And I'll add a bonus category at the end, a simple meal behavior that ties all of it together. Start with group one. Number one, fenugreek seeds. These are small, hard, amber colored seeds. You'll find them in the spice aisle of almost any grocery store for a couple of dollars. If you walk past this one because it sounds exotic, you're skipping one of the most evidence-backed blood sugar tools available, and it costs less than your daily coffee. Here's the mechanism. Fenugreek seeds contain a soluble fiber called galactomannan. When it hits water in your stomach, it absorbs it and forms a thick gel. Think of it like a slow release valve. Instead of carbohydrates flooding your bloodstream all at once, they have to pass through that gel layer first, which slows the whole process down dramatically. No flood means no spike. No spike means no panicked surge of insulin. But fenugreek also contains an amino acid called 4-hydroxyisoleucine that stimulates the pancreas to release insulin more efficiently and helps muscle cells take up glucose directly. It's working on two fronts simultaneously. How to use it? Soak 1 teaspoon of whole seeds in a glass of water overnight. In the morning, drink the water and eat the softened seeds before breakfast. The taste is slightly bitter. If that's too strong, grind them and stir half a teaspoon into yogurt or sprinkle them over eggs. Start small. This fiber is concentrated and your digestive system will need a few days to adjust. Number two, Ceylon cinnamon. The type matters here, and this is where most people get it wrong. The standard cinnamon on grocery store shelves is cassia cinnamon. It contains a compound called coumarin that in large daily doses puts real stress on the liver. What you want is Ceylon cinnamon, sometimes labeled true cinnamon. It's lighter in color, milder in flavor, and safe to use every day. The active mechanism is a group of polyphenols, plant compounds that behave almost like insulin themselves. They help insulin receptors grip glucose more firmly and slow stomach emptying after a meal. Research through the USDA Human Nutrition Research Program showed that less than half a teaspoon per day significantly reduced fasting glucose in adults with type 2 diabetes. A quarter to half a teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon daily is the target, added to oatmeal, coffee, or a smoothie. The key is pairing it with a carbohydrate containing food. That's exactly when you need those receptors working harder and stomach emptying slowing down. That's when it earns its place. Number three, broccoli sprouts. Pay close attention here because this is the most underrated food on this entire list. Not mature broccoli, the tiny 3-day old sprouts. This distinction is critical. Broccoli sprouts contain 50 to 100 times more of a compound called sulforaphane than a full grown broccoli head does. Sulforaphane does something no other food on this list does. It goes directly into the liver and suppresses the overnight glucose production process. Your liver manufactures sugar while you sleep. In people with insulin resistance, it manufactures far too much. This is why a significant number of you are waking up with fasting blood sugar numbers higher than anything you ate the night before. You fasted for 8 hours and the number went up. Your liver is the reason. A 2017 study from Lund University in Sweden gave concentrated sulforaphane to people with type 2 diabetes. Fasting blood sugar came down meaningfully, and the strongest effect was in the group with the hardest to control numbers. That's exactly who needs this most. You can grow broccoli sprouts in a jar on your kitchen counter for almost nothing, or find them in the produce section of most well-stocked grocery stores. A quarter cup in a salad, on a sandwich, or in eggs most days is enough. Don't cook them at high heat, the sulforaphane breaks down. Raw or barely wilted is how you keep the benefit. Now, a pivot, everything up to this point works on either glucose entry or overnight liver production. The next category targets a deeper mechanism, the chronic inflammation that caused insulin resistance to develop in the first place. Number 4, fatty fish, specifically salmon, mackerel, and sardines. Insulin resistance isn't just about sugar. A large part of why cells stop responding to insulin is chronic low-grade inflammation. When your body has been running an inflammatory response at low intensity for years, that inflammation physically interferes with the insulin signaling pathway at the surface of the cell. The signal gets scrambled before it can work. Salmon, mackerel, and sardines are rich in 2-omega-3 fatty acids, EPA and DHA, which are among the most potent natural anti-inflammatory compounds we have. They reduce the inflammatory signals, the cell membrane becomes healthier, and the insulin receptor starts functioning the way it was designed to. In clinical practice, patients who eat fatty fish consistently, twice a week, tend to show calmer, more stable blood sugar numbers over time, along with real improvements in blood pressure. 2 palm-sized servings per week is the target. Wild salmon, mackerel, sardines, herring, all excellent. Canned mackerel and sardines are among the cheapest options in this entire video and just as effective as fresh. Bake it, grill it, or open the can. The method matters less than the consistency. Number 5, walnuts. Of all the nuts I could mention, walnuts are the ones I recommend first because of their specific combination of effects. They're rich in polyunsaturated fats and a plant-based omega-3 that improves the function of the endothelium, the delicate inner lining of your blood vessels. That's one of the first structures damaged by persistently high blood sugar. The fat, fiber, and protein in walnuts also soften the blood sugar rise after a meal and have been shown to reduce fasting insulin levels. That's a marker of how hard your pancreas is having to work. A small handful as a snack instead of crackers or a cookie converts a blood sugar spike into a flat line. About 7 to 10 whole walnuts or a quarter cup. Keep them raw or dry roasted, not glazed, not in a honey coating. Use them as a replacement for processed snacks, not as an addition. Number 6, chia seeds. If you've ever watched chia seeds dissolve in liquid and turn into a gel, you've seen exactly how they work in your gut. Chia is one of the richest soluble fiber sources available. In your stomach, it forms the same slow release gel we saw with fenugreek. That gel coats the carbohydrates in your meal and slows their absorption dramatically. Blood sugar rises slowly, steadily. No spike, no crash, no craving an hour later. Chia also contains plant omega 3s that help quiet the low grade inflammation underlying insulin resistance. 1 to 2 tablespoons per day is enough. Stir them into yogurt, add them to a glass of water with lemon, or blend them into a smoothie. Give it 10 minutes to thicken before drinking, and drink extra water throughout the day. The fiber needs fluid to move. Now, here's what I want to give you before we continue. This is the zero cost technique I mentioned at the start, and it's the thing that ties this entire list together. It's called meal sequencing. And there's now solid research showing that the order in which you eat foods within a single meal changes your blood sugar response significantly without changing a single calorie or ingredient. Here's the principle: if you eat your vegetables and protein before your carbohydrates, instead of all together or with carbs first, the fiber and protein from the first part of the meal create a physical barrier in your stomach that slows how fast the carbohydrates enter your bloodstream. Studies from Cornell University and the University of Toronto have shown that eating in this order, vegetables and protein first, carbohydrates last, can reduce the post meal blood sugar spike by up to 30 to 40% in people with insulin resistance. Think about what that means. Same plate, same total food, different order, meaningfully different blood sugar response. That's not a supplement. That's not a dietary restriction. It's a sequencing decision you can make starting tonight. The practical version: at any meal, eat your salad, vegetables, or protein before you touch the bread, rice, potatoes, or pasta. If you're at a restaurant or a dinner table and this feels awkward, you can do it quietly without anyone noticing. You've simply started with whatever greens or protein are on the plate. You don't have to say a word about it. This is the single easiest upgrade in this entire video, and it requires no shopping, no preparation, and no cost. Number 7, avocado. Most people still think of avocado as a high fat food to limit for calorie reasons. That thinking is costing them blood sugar stability. The fat in avocado is monounsaturated, the same family as olive oil, and it's one of the most blood sugar friendly foods you can put on a plate. Here's the mechanism: that healthy fat and the fiber in avocado slow the entire meal down. When you add half an avocado to rice, toast, or anything with starch, you're not eliminating the carbohydrates. You're slowing the rate at which they convert into blood sugar. Glucose rises smoothly instead of sharply. Over time, monounsaturated fats have been shown to improve insulin sensitivity as well, meaning the cells start responding faster. In clinical practice, this is the easiest food on this list to turn into a consistent habit because it makes meals genuinely more satisfying. The mid morning reach for something sweet tends to quietly disappear. Half an avocado a day is a reasonable amount. Add it to eggs, mash it onto whole grain toast, or slice it into a salad. Anywhere there's starch, avocado softens the impact. Number 8, eggs. Whole eggs, including the yolk. For years, people were told the yolk was a problem. That advice pushed a lot of people towards sugary cereals and pastries at breakfast foods that are far worse for blood sugar than any egg ever was. A whole egg is almost pure protein and fat, with essentially no carbohydrates. So it has almost no effect on blood sugar by itself. But the real power isn't in the egg alone, it's in what the egg does to the rest of your day. Doctors call this the second meal effect. Starting the morning with eggs instead of cereal stabilizes blood sugar not just through breakfast, but all the way into lunch. You arrive at your next meal with calmer numbers and a smaller post meal spike. The protein and fat also produce real satiety, so the mid morning craving for something sweet tends to disappear on its own. In my clinical experience, switching from a grain based breakfast to 2 or 3 eggs is one of the fastest visible changes in morning glucose readings. 2 or 3 whole eggs is a reasonable daily target. Scrambled, hard boiled ahead of time, or with spinach added. Put that half avocado on top, and you have a nearly ideal blood sugar breakfast. Number 9, apple cider vinegar. This is the one with the most rapid visible effect on a home glucose meter. If you have one, you can test this tonight. The active ingredient is acetic acid. It does two things simultaneously. It slows stomach emptying, so glucose from food enters the bloodstream more gradually, and it helps your muscles pull glucose out of the blood and use it as immediate fuel. Research by Dr. Carol Johnston at Arizona State University demonstrated that 1 tablespoon of vinegar before a carbohydrate containing meal reduces the post meal blood sugar spike by roughly 20% in people with insulin resistance. That's a measurable, meaningful effect, and it costs a few dollars a bottle. The right way to take it: 1 tablespoon diluted in a full glass of water 10 to 15 minutes before a carbohydrate containing meal. Always dilute it. Drinking it straight damages tooth enamel and can irritate the throat. And if you're currently on blood sugar medications, check with your doctor before starting, because the combination can lower blood sugar faster than expected, which creates its own risks. Number 10, lentils. This one is the proof of everything I've said in this video. Lentils are a carbohydrate and they lower blood sugar. Here's why. Lentils are built from a type of slowly digested carbohydrate called resistant starch, wrapped in soluble fiber and plant protein. That combination means glucose releases from lentils slowly and steadily over several hours rather than all at once. They also produce the second meal effect. A bowl of lentil soup at lunch creates more stable blood sugar readings well into the evening. Clinically, replacing white rice or white potatoes with lentils 2 or 3 times a week is one of the most reliable interventions I know for improving A1C, your average blood sugar over the past 3 months. Half to 1 cup of cooked lentils at a time is a reasonable portion. Use them in soups, stews, or a cold salad with olive oil and a splash of the apple cider vinegar we just covered. They're filling, inexpensive, and they stretch a food budget further than almost anything else. Let me tell you about a patient I'll call Barbara. 64 years old, retired school teacher from Nashville. She came in with a fasting blood sugar of around 185 mg/dL, and her primary care doctor had just recommended adding a second medication. She was scared. She'd watched her father manage type 2 diabetes for 20 years, and she knew how that road tended to go more pills, then insulin, then the complications she didn't want to think about. We didn't strip her diet down to almost nothing. We added eggs and avocado in the morning instead of cereal, a tablespoon of vinegar diluted in water before her 2 biggest meals, lentils, replacing white rice 3 times a week, walnuts in the afternoon instead of the crackers she'd been reaching for, salmon twice a week, Ceylon cinnamon in her coffee, broccoli sprouts on her lunch sandwich, and she started eating her vegetables and protein before the carbohydrates dinner, the meal sequencing change. Within the first week, her fasting numbers began to move. By 3 months, working together with her own doctor, she came off the second medication entirely. Her A1C came back into the normal range. A year and a half later, it's still there. She didn't starve herself. She ate more food, just the food her cells could actually work with. Here's why this works when simply cutting carbs alone doesn't. Every food on this list gives your insulin its function back without removing the things you depend on: the fiber foods, fenugreek, chia, lentils, avocados, slow glucose delivery, so your pancreas never has to hit the panic button. The fatty fish and walnuts reduce the chronic inflammation that was scrambling the insulin signal at the cell wall. The Ceylon cinnamon and apple cider vinegar act directly on the insulin receptor and help it grip again. The broccoli sprouts go to the liver and stop the overnight glucose overproduction. And the meal sequencing gives every food a structural advantage before it's even digested. Do this consistently, day after day. and the cell that stopped responding to insulin gradually starts answering again. That's not a metaphor. That's the actual cellular mechanism of reversing insulin resistance. And once your own cells are doing their job, your body maintains blood sugar on its own. That's why it lasts. One important note before the action plan: if you're currently taking insulin or sulfonylurea, one of the older blood sugar lowering medications, these foods can lower your levels significantly. That's not a reason to avoid this. It's a reason to tell your doctor you're starting this approach so they can monitor your numbers and adjust your medication accordingly. Do not do this in secret. That coordination is part of how this works safely. Here is your action plan for this week. Start with three things and start with the simplest. One, begin meal sequencing at every meal today. Eat your vegetables and protein before you touch the carbohydrates on your plate. This costs nothing, requires no preparation, and starts working at your very next meal. Two, add 1 tablespoon of apple cider vinegar diluted in a full glass of water 15 minutes before your two largest carbohydrate meals. Three, replace white rice or white potatoes with lentils at least twice this week and include a serving of fatty fish on 2 evenings. Next week, add the morning routine: 2 to 3 eggs with half an avocado instead of grain based cereal, with a quarter teaspoon of Ceylon cinnamon in your coffee. Then gradually layer in the fenugreek, broccoli sprouts, chia, and walnuts over the following 2 weeks. You are not removing the foods you love, you are building a system around them. And systems done consistently change directions. One last thing: everything we've covered today lowers blood sugar through the day and after meals. But many of you have told me the same thing. Your highest reading of the day is first thing in the morning, before you've eaten anything. You fasted all night and the number went up anyway. There's a specific reason your liver does this while you sleep, and a way to stop it. I've made a video that explains exactly what's happening overnight and what to do about it. It's on screen for you now. Watch that one next, and I'll see you in the next one.